So, Mad Max, it is coming back. Not as you know it. We're getting a Furiosa movie, first and foremost. By the sounds of it, it seems quite literally all but confirmed now. This is a report over on the New York Times. I'll leave it linked down below. It is really interesting. It compounds all of the rumours and rumblings which you'd previously heard, which were stated to be exclusives, but we didn't quite know. But this has been talked about for a long time, and when something's been floated for so long, it tends to be true, because they're in pre-production and things, come out and, planning and little tidbits of info here and there. So we're going to get into this. I do think it is quite interesting. I think this is going to be an interesting test, really, of where we land on kind of strong females moving forwards, I guess, because this is traditionally a very masculine franchise, and it's interesting to see it kind of take a divergence, and maybe it'll do really, really well. Maybe it'll be absolutely fantastic. One can hope, right? Because obviously no one wants a movie to be absolutely garbage unless there's certain factors at play. But maybe it's not going to be, and maybe it won't be well received, and maybe it'll be a learning curve for the studio. Who knows? But this is an interesting one that's even getting made for starters, because there was a legal battle between George Miller and Warner Brothers, I believe it was. If you don't know about this, it's madness. They literally took Warner Brothers to court over millions unpaid. Crazy. So it's amazing to see that it hasn't actually hindered his career in any way, but I think it's because he's actually a really high profile guy, and it was a high profile case that it can't be hindered. So we're going to get into that today. Guys, first and foremost, I've got to do a little bit of a plug for my GoFundMe. I'm crowdfunding for an indie movie that I'm making. It is a fantasy horror film with Vikings-esque, crossed with The Thing, crossed with Hellraiser, crossed with Lord of the Rings. That's the kind of, I guess, the broad stroking kind of concept there. So check it out down below. I'd love it if you could contribute and support an indie film, because we always bang on about reboots, remakes, soft reimaginings, all this kind of stuff. Well, I'm trying to make something original, so support it. It's linked down below in the description box. I'd love it if you could. Now, let's get into this, right? Now, again, remember, this is over on the New York Times. Good source. It's an interview direct with George Miller. So this is all confirmed as per him anyway, and as per the interview time. We don't know how things are going to change moving forwards because of coronavirus and the monumental amount of money which is going to be bleeding from these studios. But anyway, he goes on to say, it's been 5 years since Mad Max Fury Road came out in theatres, but if the director George Miller has his way, Furiosa will soon ride again. Interesting that's the tipping point. What is it? Mad Max is what came out. Why is Furiosa going to be the next one? It's so weird. But don't expect Charlize Theron to play her. No, they're thinking of someone else completely, actually. We'll get into it in a little bit, but they're thinking of, I believe, Anya Taylor-Joy. Surprising. Don't hate it. Surprising, though. But it makes sense, because Charlize Theron is getting on now. Could she play a massively younger version of herself? No. So, obviously it makes sense that they'd cast someone else. Which may actually help a lot of people be a little bit more warmed to this project, because some people don't like Charlize Theron, and I get it. So, removing her from it and having someone who is somewhat a bit more likeable, maybe you guys will warm to the project. When we discussed the production of Fury Road for a new oral history, Miller confirmed rumours that he's moving ahead with a standalone movie about the action film's heroine, who became a fan favourite thanks to Theron's determined portrayal. Still, for those hoping to see the Oscar-winning actress back in the driver's seat, you may have to adjust your expectations. The film is a prequel, centred on a young Furiosa, and Miller is searching for an actress in her 20s to take over the role. Makes perfect sense. Now, Miller's hoping to make the Furiosa film once he completes the drama 3,000 Years of Longing, starring Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba. That film was supposed to begin shooting this spring, but production was delayed when fears of coronavirus forced an industry shutdown, which I cannot wait for it to be lifted. I'm sure I am one of many, many people that just want a return to normalcy, but hey, whatever. So, and he says, and I quote, "So after we finish it, and hopefully everything settles down with the pandemic, we'll see what the world allows us to do with Furiosa." Because that's the thing, you know, despite the fact that, you know, a virus is a virus, it doesn't disappear. Apparently the social distancing guidelines and things like that are going to be in place indefinitely, which is a startling reality if that is the case. So let's hope not. So the project has been long in the works during the decade and a half it took to bring Fury Road to the screen. Miller and his co-writer Nick Lathoris came up with extensive backstories for every character in the film, from the antagonist Immortan Joe to the comparatively minor doof warrior who wields a flame-spewing guitar. And I like that about George Miller. His worlds are worlds, right? Like, he does expand them outwards, and it's nice. Now, it was Furiosa who received the bulk of their attention. Miller sought to answer questions about what the character's life was like in the idyllic Green Place, why she was plucked from the group of woman warriors known as the Vuvani, oh my god, and how she became the hardened warrior we meet by the time Fury Road begins. It was purely a way of helping Charlize and explaining it to ourselves, which again makes sense. A lot of filmmakers do this. They have like a Bible of their universe, and it really does make sense. Still, they found Furiosa's story so compelling that they decided to write a second screenplay even before a frame of Fury Road had been shot. "I got to read it when I was cast," said Rosie Huntington Whiteley, who played Splendid, one of the Fury Road wives. God, that's a mouthful, isn't it, when I'm tired in the morning. "It's genius. I've always wondered if that movie was going to get made. For years it seemed like it might not, since Miller was locked in a legal battle with Warner Brothers." And again, this is what I mean. How fascinating. There's even actually getting made. And it was on over unpaid earnings related to Fury Road. So it actually directly linked to the project that they now wanted to do a prequel of. Unreal. But now that Miller has been given the go-ahead to proceed, he's begun auditions for the lead role. And he admitted that whoever is cast as Furiosa will have significant shoes to fill. Yes. But I also think they have the opportunity to make it a much more likeable character. Like, I get why Furiosa was who she was in the film, but, you know, Charlize Theron is going to make or break for some people. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Now, for the longest time, I thought we could just use CG de-aging on Charlize, but I don't think we're nearly there yet. Despite the valiant attempts on The Irishman, I think there's still an uncanny valley. There absolutely is an uncanny valley. So yeah, no, please don't do that. Everyone is on the verge of solving it, particularly Japanese video game designers, but there's still a pretty wide valley, I believe. Though Theron won't be returning, some crucial members of the Fury Road team have signed on. One is the Oscar-winning production designer Colin Gibson, who dropped a tantalising detail about the prequel scale. But this is what I mean. Take this with a pinch of salt, because we don't know how much money people are going to be pouring into it after all of this. Now, he says, again, remember, after the pandemic, as we discussed all the vehicles he built for Fury Road, 88 were seen on screen, but 135 were made in total. Gibson teased, the next possible iteration which is on the table has even more. I don't think so. I do not think so. I'd be surprised. I mean, cool if it is, but goddamn, there's going to be some scaling back going on. Now, Furiosa film, even bigger than Fury Road, that was enough to lure back the cinematographer John Seale, who finished work on Fury Road in 2013 and has spent the last several years in a state of semi-retirement. I've had wonderful opportunities to work after Fury Road, as you can imagine, and I've passed on all of them. But on Fury Road, I told George, if anybody else rings, I'm retired. If you ring, we'll have lunch. And 7 years later, he rang. Now, so that's it, right? Now, like I said, there has been Anya Taylor-Joy has been floated for Charlize Theron's Furiosa. So what do you guys think about this? Good news or bad news? Now, for me, let's talk about it, right? This is a traditionally masculine-led film franchise, right? It does seem bizarre to me that George Miller would then approach it from the angle of, well, the next film in the series would absolutely have to be Furiosa. And it'd have to be bigger. Because bearing in mind, remember, Fury Road was the biggest Mad Max film ever. It was just monumental in scale compared to all the other films. So to go back to it but then have a female lead as the role, and then to go up a scale even further, that's worrying for me, and I'll explain it from a few angles. Right, it's worrying because we live in a current climate where female swapped properties and things like this don't traditionally do very well. They are lamented by the fan base. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to be one of them, but if you're looking at the industry as a whole, people do lament when that happens. And 9 times out of 10, they don't do very well. Now, if they pour money into this film, yeah, larger than Fury Road, and it bombs, do you think the studio will greenlight a Mad Max sequel? And do you think it's going to have that much money involved on scale of Furiosa? Probably not, because it would have tanked. And that's what concerns me, is by the sounds of it, they're setting up the demise of the Mad Max franchise on a whole. And it sounds weird to call it a franchise, but it kind of is now. There's so many films out now, and they're planning even more. So that's a concern, but it's bizarre business. Why would you do that? Strange, right? And it's undeniable. Like I said, we do live in this climate now where female gender swap roles and things like this are not doing particularly well. They are lamented by most people, and also just queried by most people. Like, it's that kind of why sort of scenario happens. And if they do this with Mad Max, and it bombs, and they poured money into it, especially in a post-coronavirus world, I do worry for the future of the Mad Max film franchise, property, whatever. And I don't think that's too, that's just common sense, isn't it? It's just logical to kind of think that way. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this, though. Good news or bad news? Would you be game for a Furiosa? Or are you kind of one of those people that just thinks, well, why? We see where she ends up, sort of. Why do we want to explore where she came from? I'm of the mindset that prequels tend to only work if they're a prequel in the universe that explains someone else connected to the characters that we've seen before, if that makes any sense. That's how I like to do prequels anyway. So anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know down below. If you're new here, do hit subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell notification icon. And guys, returning subscribers and all, check that you've got the bell notification switched to all or notify all, not personalized. YouTube will just curate content for you, and they suck dick at it, so don't do it. It's real bad. I won't turn up in your subscription box for weeks, maybe even months, as I have been told by subscribers before. And also, please do follow me over on Twitter at Mr. H Reviews, because I tweet my videos out now directly, because again, YouTube just isn't notifying anyone. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. Please do give this video a like, and please do share it. Sharing is really important, because currently, again, like I say, not notifying people of the video. So if you could share it, that will hopefully get me out of this weird sandbox that I'm currently in, that YouTube has put me in, purgatory as it is. But anyway, take care.